today I'm working on a painting of the Grinch, but the first thing we gotta do is paint over this painting. One of my favorite things to do is paint over old artwork. I find it really cathartic. I painted this actually in Germany while I was in the wine and paint phase. I was hosting wine and paint lessons, and this was one of my instructional paintings. So yeah, let's go ahead and paint over it, and then we'll get started. If you're starting out with a blank canvas, I'm gonna ask that you use thin layers of black acrylic paint to cover up your painting or cover up your canvas. I love starting out with black. I think it's a great way to start a painting. One of my favorite things about painting is the fact that you can paint over them. And if for some reason you need to remove a layer of paint, you can do that as well by sanding it. But I love painting over paintings. It just creates that layer of mystery, and then someday when my paintings are worth more than they are today, they'll take an x-ray and look at what's underneath it. So yeah. I'm excited to paint the Grinch. I painted the Grinch a few years ago, but I have gotten better at painting since then, so I'm excited to give it another go. This is a good start. If you prefer using bigger brushes, feel free to do so. I prefer using a smaller brush. This is hopefully what your painting looks like at this point after you've painted over your canvas black. Now I'm going to plot out the shape of the Grinch. And we're going to start out with just a simple green color. So, yeah. I haven't really mixed any of my colors as of now. Oh, before I get started, I'm just going to show you what the general shape is that I'm going for so that it makes sense. Use that brush. This is a better brush. Alright, so this is the general shape. We've got the head that almost looks like a Hershey's Kiss, but he is slanted a little bit, like his head is cocked to the side. He's got a little swirly piece, and then we've got his neck that goes into the shoulders, and then he's going to be crossing his arms, and then he's got like these big eyes and a big smile. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of plot it out, but that's going to be the general shape that we're going for. So yeah. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is use my green paint, and I'm actually going to start out with the lower half of his body, and I'm gonna make kind of a mountain, if you will. The paint is still wet underneath, which is totally okay. I'm just gonna layer up my green and build it up a little bit. So it's almost like I'm painting a U shape. These are going to be his shoulders. This is going to be the space, like an upside down U, almost like an N. It's a half circle in a way. It's a pretty simple shape. So this is where we're going to flesh out his shoulders, his arms, his chest area. When you're working on a painting, especially a figure painting, it's in your best interest to plot out the full shape before, like the outline, not like delineating it, like outlining it with lines, but get the full figure on the canvas. Make sure that it's positioned correctly before you get too crazy with the details. Okay, so you might not be able to see a lot of it, but that's okay because the green is very dark, but we're going to be building up the vibrance. All right, so here's the neck. It's basically going up into a point, leaving room for the shoulders. So that's the neck. Now we're going to plot out the head. Now be patient with the process. Obviously it doesn't look like much right now. Paintings take time, so just allow it to unfold. Alright, so his head is going to be kind of slanted, so it's almost like I'm painting a smiley face on top of the neck. That's the bottom of his head. And the lower portion of his head is kind of oval. So I'm just going to break it up in an oval shape. Good. Again, trying to keep that slant. Okay, and then there's almost like a rounded triangle on top of the oval, which is the top of his head. Okay. Now there's a little curly Q on the top of his head, so it goes into like a little Hershey's Kiss point. And we will bring all of the interesting elements to the painting after we plot out the green. All right. Okay. That's a good start. No, it doesn't look like much right now, but that's okay. This is the the start of the painting. Okay. I kind of wish I could let it dry a little bit, but since we're all here and the painting must go on, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to mix a few colors, and then whenever I come back to the painting, hopefully it'll be dry enough for me to actually add some detail. But this is a good start. These are my base colors. I've got all of the primary colors as well as one secondary color, brown, white, and black. We're going to take green and mix it with yellow. Oh, whoops, some of the black ran into the white. It's okay. Alright, that's a good color. Now we're going to take green and mix it with blue. This is going to be our dark green. That's a nice color. Let's take some of this green, mix it with some white. That's going to be one of our highlight colors. Let's take some green, mix it with some red, which is the complementary color of green. And it kind of adds a little bit of an olivey tone to the green. That's a nice color as well, a nice shading tone. What other colors? Definitely, let's take some red, add it with just a little bit of white. Okay. I think mixing a few different shades of green is a good idea. So let's plot out where the eyes are gonna go. So I'm gonna take this light green, and in this space between the top of the Hershey kiss and the bottom of the Hershey kiss, which is his head, is the eyebrows. Okay, and we're gonna take this lighter green and we're just gonna plot it in. It's okay that the black paint from underneath is showing through, because I'm going from dark to light for the most part anyways, and this is actually a chiaroscuro image I'm using as a reference, which I generated on Midjourney, which you guys can hate me for it if you want, I don't care. But essentially it's like two down shaped, like soft rounded rectangles. These are the eyebrows. And underneath it there's shading. I'm gonna essentially take my blue, my dark green blue, and kind of plot out where the eyes are gonna be, because they're connected to the eyebrows and we want it to look like him, so we've got to make sure everything is kind of in the correct position. And feel free to move things as you go, but essentially the eyes are almost like a little figure 8 moment happening. And again, in the beginning stages, your painting is gonna probably be sloppy, it's gonna be muddy. That's okay, let it happen. I'm gonna take my white and I'm just gonna kind of indicate where the eyes are. It's okay if it's not fully white. I'm just basically making a note to self, essentially. Like, this is where the eyes are. Okay. So essentially, this is the shape of the eyes. It's like this. It's almost like a figure 8, but disconnected. And around it's going to be a strong shadow. The little pupils are going to be here. There's going to be hair that comes up, and then like a eyebrow moment on top, which is what we're kind of getting at. So. All right, so I'm kind of moving his eye down a little bit. All right, I'm taking this light green and I'm going to indicate that it's lighter on this side. On the right side, the light is coming from the right, and it's important that I feel out how much space actually exists above the eyes, which is why I'm going ahead and doing this. And I'm almost doing like a brush. I'm making it brushy because he's hairy. So that's why I'm saying it's okay if it's goopy and stuff, because he's hairy, and that's fine, because it kind of, as we build up, the goopiness will work with the painting. Taking my bluish green and shading the right side of the face a little bit and underneath the eyebrow. Because there is shading around the eyes and in between the eyes. There's gonna be some cool eyebrow hairs happening, which I'm just going to indicate a little bit right now, but not getting too into it. Hopefully the voices aren't too distracting. There's other people here in the studio. Okay, so now we're going to highlight the nose actually, and we're going to take that light green that we mixed, and we're going to indicate this shape. It's almost like round in between the eyes, and underneath it kind of comes up because he's got a devious smile. And on the right side we're doing the same. Okay, so the face is hairy, so I'm just indicating some of that. Now I'm just bringing it down underneath, and in this area is going to be a little bit darker than the top, or a lot darker than the top. We're doing the same thing to the right side, keeping his shoulder nice and intact. The brush marks we're doing are like this. That's like the vibe. That's gonna give us that hairy look. And so this side is light. He's got an arm that kind of folds over. So I'm painting that in with the lighter paint. Good. And this is almost like a oval that's hooking down, hiding the rest of his arm beneath the other arm. All right, we're gonna take that blue, the blue green, and we're gonna just shade it. This is black now. I switched to black. I'm using black to shade the left side of his chest and arm, connecting to his neck, because the left side is the darker side, so we're really trying to indicate that as best as possible. Okay. A little highlight on his arm, kind of on his shoulder area, and blending that around. Some blues. Taking the blue-green mixture that I mixed and just kind of using that as a way to shade the green. All right, so now we're gonna actually mix an even lighter shade of green. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start out with this white. I don't have a ton of space. I'm just gonna mix it in with some of the green I already have. If it looks a little pasty, add some yellow. If it looks way too yellow, add a little more green. And this might not be the exact color I'm looking for, but it's gonna do the trick for now. So right here, I'm gonna make a very light chunk of fur by doing that brush stroke motion that I showed you. Just kind of quick, hairy brush marks. And as you can see, the paint is starting to build up and we're starting to feel the form and the shape, which we love. Over here, I'm keeping a cast shadow right here from his face, so just kind of keeping that nice and shaded, but adding a lighter shade right there, a lighter shade of green. As you paint, the paint will build up and get thicker. Okay. Let's focus some energy on the face again. I think I want to bring this down a little bit more. It doesn't look right because he doesn't have his nose, but bringing that down. I feel like I need to add his actual facial features in order to make sense of the rest of the painting, but as you can see, it is starting to happen. Oh, I forgot to add the indication of fingers. Let's just add a few indication of a little bit of fingers happening. And we'll add the nails or whatnot, but it's basically like little bananas sticking out from that side. So he's kind of going like this. Right, so these are the fingers coming out. Once it dries, I'll add fingernails to kind of make it seem more fingery. All right, let's just plot in the lips a little bit. I'm gonna take my red and I am just gonna paint in a smile. And right now in the beginning stages of this painting, everything is pretty preliminary, but we're gonna go in and we're gonna go in and make it look more detailed as we go. Same with the noses. See, the paint is still really wet on the face, so it's not really, there's no point in doing too much detail right now. Okay, I'm gonna make his lower jaw line a little bit rounder. And I'm gonna connect it with some of the green using the dark blue. Underneath his chin, because it's shaded, there's more of a highlight happening here. So I'm going to add that in. Again, most of the light is coming from the left. So see how you can build up the brightness of the paint as you go, but again, it's easier to do that as it dries. Like right now, the paint is still pretty wet, so it's hard to really get those shades in there. All right, let's see, is this dry? It's dry enough. Let's add more white to the eyes. I'm gonna keep a shadow from the top lid over the eye, so I'm not making the entire eye super white, just like the bottom part basically. And then this side, it's gonna be white but gray, like not a super bright white, because his left eye is still in the shadow. So just making his eye a little bit more noticeably white, the side brighter. It's creepy Grinch. I mean, he's already so creepy, but without the eyes, he's even creepier. Keeping that shadow on the top part. But blending it. It'll make more sense as we go. Now let's add the pupil, which is going to be connected kind of to the top of the eye. There we go. It's looking good. It's getting there. Let's go ahead and take the light green and re-emphasize the eyebrows. That looks good. And we're going to do it on this side as well. the rest of the head a little bit. Let's take some dark blue or the blue-green mixture that we mixed and get some of those hairs kind of coming up. I want to make the front of his head a little bit more highlighted than what I have. And blend it with the dark blue. Perfect. And taking a little bit of black. To reiterate the side of his face. So hopefully you can start to see the Grinch coming out more visually. Now that he's kind of there visually, we can continue with bringing out some of the different aspects of the painting that makes it very him. Let's add a little bit more brightness on the left arm, and it's still kind of blending in with the back or the black, which makes it kind of chiaroscuro. We're actually going to highlight on this side a little bit of light green, outlining the shadow. Beautiful. It's somewhat backlit, somewhat chiaroscuro. Chiaroscuro is one of my favorite words to use when generating an image reference on Midjourney, because if it's chiaroscuro, it's moody, it has strong lighting, and that usually looks more elevated. This looks good. Beautiful, beautiful. Highlighting a little bit more in here. Perfect. It's like a balance between highlighting and shading. It's both. Let's add, where it's just black here, I'm gonna add my dark green, allowing the black to kind of show through some of my brush strokes, but creating some volume. On the shadow portion. Let's add a little highlight here. It's kind of some of his hair kind of sticking out a little bit. Making this section a little bit stronger, a little bit more defined. Blending it in with that light shade of green, but not as light. So we've got a few different shades of green happening right now. The green that's straight from the tube can be a little bit kind of clear looking, so mixing it with other colors is going to be a good idea, just to add some opacity to the paint. It's starting to kind of come out, starting to look a little bit more interesting. What do you think of it so far? looking at your painting from afar is always a good idea, because it allows you to see like some of those things that you may not have been able to spot before. So keep that in mind. Sometimes tipping your painting upside down helps too, which I'm probably going to do relatively soon. So yeah, it doesn't look as bold from a distance, but that's the great thing about paintings, is you step away and you kind of can see what works, what doesn't work, what stands out, what might not be as harmonious. It's getting there. Actually, we talked about flipping the painting. Let's go ahead and do that. If you're going to flip your painting, flip your reference too. Some people might knock on me for using a visual reference, but whether it's a photograph, an AI generated image, a picture I take myself, or real life observation, the best art usually is derived from observation in some way. Even if it's from your imagination, you're going off of things that you've seen in real life. Okay, let's highlight this side of his body by doing that brush stroke that I showed you. This is the way that you kind of get that hairy look. Same with over here, just doing the same thing, taking some medium green, kind of creating that hairiness. Same with on this side. Kind of, I had already added the red for the lips, and now I'm using the green around it to kind of snatch everything in and articulate everything. Let's kind of connect the eyebrows with the head. Let's get a medium shade of green. Let's work it in. Work it in. Beautiful. This is a more old school rendition of the Grinch, so it just depends on which rendition you're using as your reference. That's going to determine what it looks like. Alright, we're making the side of his face a little bit more prominent, creating more space. Under his eye, let's keep it shaded, but connect that darkness with the green by adding more green around it. I want this shape around his nose to be a stronger shape in general. So I'm connecting a lot of my brush marks and simplifying what we're looking at visually. Let's add some green on the other side of the red tip of the nose. Let's add some green on this side of his face, just making it more strong. I might add a little bit more in a minute, but I think, see, on this side we're keeping that shadow nice and prominent, because that's going to inform the shape that we perceive the nose, mouth, chin, cheek area to be, which is all connected. I'm actually going to take some burnt sienna, which is kind of a brown. Mix it a little in with my yellow, and I'm just going to highlight the side of his face with it. It's a little out there. I am going to put it in a few other places, but all right, we're gonna, because it looks like it's floating, we have to mix that in with the dark blue green that we established. Very good. It's a little bit bright looking, so again, taking that dark green blue mixture and blending it in, keeping it nice and hairy looking. So far so good. There's a little cast shadow. I'll probably make it darker too. There we go. And let's add a little highlight on the tip of the nose. Let's connect this to the space around. Okay, we're gonna highlight underneath the chin, keeping that shadow nice and prominent still. Very good. All right, now highlighting some hairies on this side of the face, kind of poking out, catching the light in the darkness, which really creates that three-dimensional kind of vibe. That looks good. It's like finding that balance between highlight and shading. I kind of want this to just feel like it's connected to that hair around it, so I'm just adding a few little like highlights in the shadow, not too much. Okay, that's getting there. That looks kind of cool, right? What do you think? It's not there all the way, but it's getting there. Okay. Maybe just a little bit like that. Taking the negative space, kind of cutting into it a little bit. Okay, so now I'm gonna actually take a smaller paintbrush, like this size, and I'm gonna try to work on like the eyes, the nose, just I'm gonna crisp it up, create some stricter lines basically. So under here, just gonna do my best. Okay, there we go. And shading underneath the eye. And let's do a little Let's do a highlight in the black of the eye. That looks good. Let's do it on this side too. Oh yeah, that looks really, really good. Okay, so we're keeping this side nice and shaded, but I am gonna create a little bit of a highlight underneath the eyeball, like that. That looks good. And taking the black, and I'm just going to kind of paint in a few hairs. There we go. Just trying to create some texture. Let's take the green, and we're going to paint in some hairs with the green as well. That looks good. Let's take some blue. We're going to do the same thing. Oh yeah, that looks great. Now, taking some dark green, kind of blending that a little bit. Let's do the same on this side. Taking dark green. Oh, what happened there? Nice. Just do a little bit of this action to make the hair look thicker around his nose, where it's kind of coming out towards the viewer a little bit. Good. Now let's take some dark blue and kind of make a crease here, the dark blue green mixture. You know how where your lip kind of, your cheek kind of folds into your lip? That's kind of what we're doing here. Only let's make sure that it's the right shape. Taking a little bit of black, there we go. I'm telling you, the Grinch is scary. The Grinch gives me nightmares. Alright, doing that. Let's make this even brighter right here, because it's coming up and out. There we go. I could make that cast shadow even darker, to be honest. So just taking a little bit of black. That's good. Let's take some dark blue and work it up into, it's like getting the right amount of texture. You don't want it to be like distracting. Yeah. I'm gonna zoom into the eyes a little bit. Alright, let's create a little bit of texture around the eyes. And hair. That looks good. That's using a smaller brush at this point in the painting is pretty important, because we're trying to get some of that detail across. Using different shades of green is going to make it look hairier. Like adding in the dark green, then adding light green over it, allowing the dark green to be kind of the foundation. to the light green, blending some of this in together, just making it connect more. That's good. Just creating little like pieces of hair and texture around the shape that we've already established. Add a little bit more structure in here. Maybe a few pieces of hair coming out. That looks good. Let's do that over here as well, where it kind of curls around. Add some highlights on this side. Kind of, it's got the little hairy swirly thing on the top of his head. It's really like a Hershey's Kiss. It's giving me Hershey's Kiss vibes. Let's make this even more noticeable. Dark, bright green. Make it really thick. Make it really strong. And then it curls and loops around. And because it's hidden in the shadow, we're going to use that dark blue-green mixture as it curls around. And then, but we're going to highlight it. We're going to highlight it a little bit. There we go. Just like that. And then highlight here as well. Highlight, 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 just like little tiny hairs that are catching the light. Even though this is the dark side of our subject matter, the left side is the dark side, the right side is the light side. There's still highlights in the shadows because it's hair. It kind of catches the light in a few places. So it makes sense. Just taking some of my blue-green as well as some of the black and just reiterating a little bit, mixing it with what we already have. Making sure that the top, the very tip top of the swirly is still as textured and hairy as everything else. Right now it's looking a bit like smooth, so I'm gonna go in and yeah, that looks good. Back in here, it's okay if it's kind of ambiguous where everything starts and stops. Ambiguity in paintings is a good thing. It's a bright day today. I love that. So let's highlight the mouth. Let's work on the nose a little bit more using my small brush. Highlighting the mouth, we're gonna take yellow, mix it with the red, and in here I'm just gonna go in and kind of paint into the red. You have to be bold. You gotta make those crazy, risky choices. So far it's looking a little bit bad. It's like we've got to keep around the lips nice and dark and shaded. But the lips itself need to have a highlight, so that's the goal. Okay, and here let's highlight some of the green on the periphery of the lips. There's the shadow, but again, there's the highlights within the shadows. If you do something, sometimes you have to fix everything around what it is that you just did. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm just kind of trying to find where everything goes. And all right, so let's get back to the lips. Let's take the yellow, mix it a little bit with the white, and I'm going to create a little highlight like that. Let's add more red around it. Sometimes you gotta get up close to your painting and do what I don't like to do, which is get up close to the painting. It's better if you maintain some distance from the painting so you can kind of get that far away view. That's good. A little bit of blue around this dark shadow so it's not so deep looking. Again, reiterating some of this highlight. That's good. I'm just kind of adding that in. That looks good. It's a bit too bright. It's a bit too bright right there. I'll just add some more blue, make it darker. Now it feels like it's going into the shadow like it should be. Taking my yellow, red, orange mixture and highlighting my nose, or the tip of his nose really, and just making it look round. That might have flattened it a bit too much, but we're going to recreate some of the structure by adding more red. And now a shadow of blue within the red. That's good. Now recreating a little bit of space around that shadow and a hint of green on the nose, on the red part of the nose, because it's reflecting from the green hair. Adding more detail into my cast shadow. Just making it a bit darker, a bit more pronounced. Let's look at it from afar. Look at that. How cool. What do you think so far? I like how I was able to get his head slanted, you know? I love my dress too. I wasn't really sure what to wear with this, but I think this works. So, yeah. Bringing out the shadows in the eyes. Keeping the shadow there makes the eye feel rounder. Although I do want to work on it just a little bit more. Bringing that in. There we go. Taking the blue, putting it around. Oh yes, let's take some white. I just want to add more here. That looks good. Just to make it look like it's more in the light. There. All right, now taking a little bit of dark green, adding some hair around the eyes. Same with on this side, just adding some hair. Let's take some white. Let's highlight in the shadow a little bit of hair. It's important to not get too carried away with highlights. But I do think that there needs to be some highlights in here, like the hair kind of catching the light. It just gives that 3D look. Maybe a couple in here. Definitely some more on this side. Maybe a few highlights on this side. We don't want it to look pasty. That's kind of the risk of using a lot of white. Okay, let's highlight the lip again. I just feel like there needs to be more. There just needs to be more. That looks good. Let's also highlight, or I'm just creating more hair highlights kind of in the darkness. My paint is kind of thick, so it can be hard to get that wispy look, but we'll manage. Let's take this. It's a sienna color, and I'm basically going to indicate nails on his little fingers and shading them. Let's actually create more hair on the fingers just to make it look more thought out. Shading down in here. That looks good. Shading it a little bit. That's good. All right, let's add more hair around the hands, like on the arm though. And on this arm, let's bring out some light green as well. Just using this as a way to make it look like it's, you know, he's got some attitude, some character. Taking some raw sienna, mixing it in a little bit, some of that brown, making sure I mix it nice and evenly with the green. The raw sienna just kind of, it's almost like it just creates a little bit of dimension in the green because it's a brown, but it almost works as red in a way because it's like a red brown. And red is the complementary color of green, which went into my choice of dress today. Let's take some white, mix it with the blue, create kind of a luminescent looking shadow in here. This is good. I'm really happy with the way that this is looking. It's cute. Okay. I do still think I can create a little bit more subtlety in here. Zoom into the, so I will say with the hands, I'm not going to spend too much time on them. I just want them to look like they belong. Like I don't want it to feel out of place. That's my main goal right here. I feel like that's okay. That's decent. Little highlights again in the darkness. There we go. Taking yellow and green, reiterating some of this. There we go. Same with right here. Just creating a little bit more structure in a few places. That's it. That's one of the reasons I like working from dark to light, is when you do add the light, the dark is already kind of there. There we go. Adding some dark blue around the lips. Actually, I probably should go into black. Just adding a tiny bit of black. There we go. Blue, green. Just shading a little bit right in here. Looks good. Add some hairy highlights on the side with my light green mixture. That looks good. And on this side as well. It's basically more yellow in the green mixture than green. So it's like green, yellow, but more yellow. That's how we're getting this color. taking the white, mixing it with yellow and green to make an even lighter yellow green mixture so that in here feels even lighter. It's like we're reiterating what we've already established a few times, multiple times. And that's really the nature of painting, is you paint, you keep painting, you keep painting, you keep painting over what you've just painted, and you just keep going. You keep working on it. That looks good. I mean, I kind of want this to there. There. That looks really, really good. I don't know, I might be done. Let me take a picture. Just to make sure there's nothing that like stands out I need to fix. I think it looks good. I like that he looks really hairy. It's not too different than my reference, which is good. I mean, it's different enough. So, yeah, but not too different. It's the right amount. I love my dress. It's so pretty. Let's make that look a little bit softer. Okay. Where's my palette knife? Taking my palette knife, dipping it in the burnt sienna, and scraping it onto the background. I know that looks really bad. Now we're going to take the black and scrape it over what we just did. Taking some white, adding some white back there, and on this side, taking some black and scraping over it. More burnt sienna. You get it on there. And then take the black and push it back with the black. It's like texture, you know? Palette knife painting. I feel like this needs to be shaded more, because it's going back in the distance. And this could be a little bit more ambiguous. There. All right, now doing that over here. Now taking the black, covering it up. I mean, already it looks really cool. Just want that to be a little bit more ambiguous, where it starts and stops, basically. Same with in you add the color on, and then you take the black and you kind of cover it up a little bit with the black so that it's pushed back into the distance again. I did this with my last painting, and I really like this technique. It's a fun, relatively easy way to kind of bring it all together. Let's make it a little bit thicker in there. That's cool. Maybe take some of this, kind of go the opposite way. A lot of this is about just kind of feeling it out. There we go. I don't know. You don't want it to be too much. That's the thing. I mean, that looks pretty cool. I like it. I like it a lot. Just making sure that this shadow feels strong yet integrated. I've been working on this side of the face for a while, but that's okay. Oh yeah, don't forget to vote for me for the Streamer Awards for the art ASMR. Okay. I think that might be done. I mean, I really like it. I really, really think it's cool. I don't know. What do you think? Add a little bit of a highlight right there. I think it looks amazing. I'm really, really happy with it. Let me take a picture. It's like I have to get the right angle. I feel like that moment up there could be a little bit more subdued. There. There. That looks good. It's like once it dries, then I can really tell how it looks, but until it's dry, it might be harder to see like what's actually happening because the wet paint appears darker and thicker and shiny. So yeah, but it looks good. I'm happy with it. I may go back in and look at it again and add some final touches to it, but I think it looks pretty cool. It's only 2 o'clock and the sun is already starting to set, which is so weird. Well, I wish I could go for longer, but I think I'm done. And I'm super grateful that you are here. Thank you so much for watching this process of painting. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned a thing or two. Let me make sure that it's where I want it to be. I think it is. I actually really like it. I'm really happy with it and I'm grateful that you were here to, you know, experience this process with me, and hopefully somebody learned something. Hopefully it inspires you to paint and tap back into that creative side. I'm probably going to be doing more Christmas themed art over the next couple weeks. I will say December is a busy month, so we'll do my best. Mwah. Bye, love you.